Okay. The reason we do this kind of event is to let you know the topics that some courses may offer you for the internship, even if they come later in your program. So this is the list of the speakers for the first part and the second part. And some of them, there will be some substitute, but everybody will present. Now, first of all, some generic rules before I start to talk about which are the topics that I offer. Some rules for when you want to enroll in an internship. Theoretically, you should be at the second year of the master program. And when you pick up the topic, one specific topic, of course, I know that it may seem obvious, but you should have the competencies, the knowledge to do it. So, for example, if you like the internship of a specific course, better at the end of the course, or at least during the course, but not before, as sometimes had happened. You may decide to have the internship, to do the thesis and the internship together. That counts for 525 hours. Please, from a bureaucratic point of view, have in mind that we can record 40 hours per week. So that means that are few months. Okay. Also, 8 hours per day, and nobody works 8 hours per day on the internship. So the number of weeks that it should last, make it usually we do it a little bit longer because of course, as I said, nobody works 8 hours a day per day in the internship, but it's a lot of time. Okay, so you have to take into account that the internship is months long. Sometimes students prefer to separate the internship from the thesis. That can be done theoretically. You can do an internship in one topic and the thesis in another topic. Or you may have the internship recognized because you have done something in elsewhere. Okay, so that can be let's say evaluated as an internship. In that case, the internship by itself is 150 hours. Okay, so of course the number of hours reserved to the thesis is the difference between the two. You can have usually today we will mainly mention academic internship. That means that you will have a tutor that will be or both tutor, both company, and there are two tutors for each internship. One is company, one is the academic. For the most internship that you will do inside the university, both tutors are from the academy, even if one is the company tutor. That is the department, by the way. So the department becomes the company, and then is the real academic tutor, which is the person. But in some cases, you will see we have also contacts with companies, real companies, outside business companies. In that case, you will have to identify one tutor, the company tutor, inside the business company, and the other tutor inside the academy. Okay, the academy tutor is mainly to verify that the kind of work that you do during your internship is valuable. Okay, when you go into company, it doesn't have to be necessarily research. Can be more economically oriented, can be more commercial, no? Can cover different positions inside the business companies. While usually, if you do it inside the university, the real academic internship, that is a research work, especially for the master degree. So all the presenters that were invited today are here because they teach one course in the master degree. However, they may guest, as I will do at the end of my presentation, they may guest some slides or may reserve some times for colleagues that also teach, for example, in other courses of the bachelor degree of the biomedical engineering, but that may also have topics that may be used for the internship. So let's start with my course. Is biomedical signal and image processing. Is a course that is erogated the first semester of the first year, except for the last cycle of last year, that was the second. And the internship with me, I will mainly talk about the academic internship, so research internship, even though I have also contact with the companies like Namirial or like Locioni that came during the course. The place where you will do the internship are the cardiovascular bioengineering lab or the bioengineering labs. That are two labs which are located in the Department of Information. We also have you see, the group, let's say some of us are grouped into a brain, let's say, it's a site. In reality, is a group of people that work in biomedical engineering issue, and you can is a brain.de.univpm.it, which is you can see the web page, you can see the kind of activity that we do. And here you see some pictures of the labs and of the topics that we do. But as I said, the course is on biomedical signal and image processing. So here you see the schemes, the stages, the main stages for the biomedical signal processing, and we go from the acquisition to signal transformation and to parameter selection. We also have signal classification, but as you will see, that is more reserved to a colleague of mine that will follow me in the presentation. Okay, so let's see that we will focus with me, we will mainly focus on these three stages. Acquisition for the people that want to do experimental thesis, and the signal transformation and feature extraction for people that instead want to do, students that want to do real research work, in which we assume that the data in the experimental internship, you will do the acquisition. That means that you use the device to acquire the data. In the others, in the research, maybe the data have been acquired from someone else. Okay, so you go and write some programs, some applications to analyze them. Same thing for the stages of image processing. We don't do acquisition in my lab, but we may mainly focus on the analysis. Okay, on the analysis that may include announcement and analysis. These are the two parts, the two blocks that mainly relates to biomedical engineering, because with the images that are a little bit heavier, bigger than the signal, there is also the problem of visualization and the problem of management that are less treated, at least from myself. So mainly on the announcement and on the analysis that of course will include also the classification. Now, which are the topics? I will very quickly go through the main topics that we treat. I say we because actually the group with I collaborate is constituted by several people. Each students will have an internal tutor, which is the young researcher that collaborate with me, that does research in that topic, so that we will serve and we will do the overview, the tutoring activity for your thesis. Now, the sport is one of the main activity or topic that we treat. It's usually very appreciated by the young people. We have thesis. It's mainly finalized to fight the sport-related sudden cardiac death. Usually you see that there may be from the media, there may be some problems, health problems related with sport people. And here we go from the acquisitions. If you belong to a team, okay, or you are an amateur athlete, is the same, but we have any kind of thesis from the acquisition to the analysis. In this, for this topic, we collaborate also with the hospital, the Dr. Pozzi, which is from the Division of Pediatric Cardiac Surgery of the regional hospital, for Italico, with Polytechnic of Turin, and actually, as I said, this is one of the main topic that we treat, and we are also organize a school, a bioengineering school in September in this topic. Then we have the perinatal monitoring. Perinatal monitoring means the monitoring of the baby near the date of birth, a little bit before, so when it's still a fetus, the prenatal monitoring, which is very challenging because, of course, there cannot be direct contact with the baby, or immediately after the baby is born. So for the prenatal monitoring, we also have collaboration with the Ospedale Riuniti di Ancona, with the gynecology department, and with the Polytechnic of Milan. The premature baby are baby that are born too early, so they have a lot of problems, and they require a special monitoring to set alarms. So also in this case, we have a collaboration with the Ospedale Salesi di Ancona, with the neonatology department, and then we also have the baby telemonitoring, which are baby that underwent surgery and that we would like to monitor them while they are back at home instead of keeping them in the hospital, because of course they stay better there. Then we have the image side of the internship, is the first aid project in which we use the deep learning for early medical diagnosis. They may involve artificial intelligence applied to both signals and images. Signals mainly are the ECG or the sound signal of the heart, and for the images mainly we have the pulmonary CT scan and the brain MRI scans, but these are only examples. The idea is to identify the disease early in time, so we can act and have a better outcome for the patients. And this is in collaboration with the informatics group, and in particular with Professor Dragoni. Also, for what concern images, we have a collaboration with Professor Mara Fabri and Dr. Polonara. These are on fMRI images in which they are more physiologically oriented, in which we go and see the activation maps in response to stimuli, for example. Sense stimuli can be taste, can be touch, and we see which part of the brain is activating. Or also we study the interhemispheric connectivity. The side part of the brain is connected with the left side of the brain, but for example, in a subject with epilepsy, this connection is removed to avoid that the crisis in one part of the brain propagates into the other. And also there are some images evaluations for the physiological conditions of the patient before surgery. And then we have this project, this collaboration with Professor Ennio Gambi, which is more telecommunication. So in here we have a lot of non-contact device. No? Usually we use electrodes as biomedical engineers. In this case, we have devices that monitor the person, but without any contact. For example, for the smart houses, no? In which you can have this sensor to monitor the activity of daily living. For example, for old people to check if they do perform the actions that they take medicine, they eat, they wash. Sometimes it's to check if they do the normal activity, sometimes to check if they perform instead some specific activities. And then also you see some sensor, for example, which is under the bed to see if they lay down, if they move while they are in the bed, because of course the information is completely different. There are devices for checking the status of the driver, different kind of application, but not directly with the sensor, which is not directly in contact with the person. It can be radar system, RGB cameras, and so on, different kind of sensors. This is part of what I was saying before. These are office safety. This is normal life for the elderly people, and this is a particularly interesting topic in this moment, because it's the safety, for example, in places where are particularly crowded. No? Like this is a picture of the airport to track the people and see who is there and what is doing. So I hope I have been in my time. It's time of we can change. Just an information while my colleague arrives.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I am Agnese Sberellini, and I'm the teacher of Cognitive Computation in Physiology and Medicine. This is a new course that will start next week for the first time. In fact, this year we have two courses together, the first year and the second year, because this is a course that for the last academic year was in the second year, while from this year it would be in the first year. That's I have the first and the second year together. But maybe not all people know what cognitive computation is. The cognitive computation is a big branch of engineering because it includes all basics and applied technology involving biologically inspired computational accounts. Thus, maybe we know one part of cognitive computation because it's very trendy in this period, that is the artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence is cognitive computation, but is not all cognitive computation. In fact, in these disciplines, we have all the technology that, of course, informatic technology, because it's computation, that are biologically inspired. For example, we have the neural networks, maybe are the most common, as the most known. But for example, we have also algorithm based on animals' behavior. For example, the ant colony organization. No, that's it is a discipline that includes a lot of methods that can be applied in different applications. And here I summarize some of them. The main 5 topics that the cognitive computation treat are these 5 that are the feature selection, the classification, the clustering, the regression, and interpretability. Maybe everyone know what classification is, does classify subjects of objects in different classes. In fact, the classification, as Professor Burattini said, is one of the big part of cognitive computation, but we have also parts that are very innovative, like, for example, the interpretability. The interpretability is one of the new application of the cognitive computation, and in clinics, thus for biomedical engineering, is widely important because the clinics, the diagnostic, need more the interpretation more than the classification. That is absolutely essential in this field. Thus, with the internship with me, with my course, we will focus on this aspect, applying different context of the biomedical engineer. How to do it? Which software we will use? All the software that we can use. Thus, first of all, of course, we will use MATLAB or Python. Thus, but for example, R is one of the most used software for this software. But I would like to remark many others, because the cognitive computation can be applied with different techniques, and maybe different techniques are important for the goal that you have. Thus, it's not important the tool that you are using, but you have to have the skill to use all the tools that are possible, and maybe one tool is better for different tasks. The first application that I propose is the digital cardiology, because the digital cardiology is what I do every day. In fact, I am a postdoc fellow of Professor Burattini. I work in the cardiovascular bioengineering lab. Thus, the first 2 teams that I propose are in collaboration with Professor Burattini, but also with the Leiden University Medical Center, in particular with Professor Keisuenne. And with Professor Ksenia Sedova from University of Prague. In this topic, we try to apply the technique of cognitive computation to classify cardiovascular data, that can be data, signals, or images, for the diagnosis of cardiovascular disease. For example, one of the most studied diseases is ischemia or atrial fibrillation. But also we can use this technique to find hidden patterns. That's what I mentioned, to interpret from the data, and find maybe the pattern of specific disease that are not known in a moment, and that can be used to define new decision index, to new clinical index. Another application is on COVID-19. In particular, in this topic, we have also a scholarship with the consortium GAR. In particular, Dr. Chiara Leoni is working in this topic. That's maybe it's one of the person that you know that can help in this topic. And in this field, we are trying to, that we are out of pandemia, fortunately, but maybe the COVID has comorbidities, provoke comorbidities in patients. And one of these, for example, is the atrial fibrillation that can appear after the COVID infection. Thus, we are evaluating and we are studying the hidden pattern in the ECG of people that were affected by COVID-19 in order to evaluate this long-term effect of this pathology. Another topic is the monitoring of the mother, the fetus, and the newborns. And also in this team, we have a strong collaboration with Professor Morettini, Professor Burattini, but also with Ospedale Uniti Ancona, with l'Università di Milano, in particular with the person of Professor Roberto Sassi, and in Politecnico di Torino with Professor Marco Naflitz. In this context, it's very difficult to find the gold standard. It is for the cognitive computation, we have to have the gold standard that is the opinion of the clinicians, but sometimes specifically in this context, gynecologists, clinical persons are not in agreement. And we have also indexes, thus objective indexes that are not in agreement. That some indexes say that the fetus maybe is in hypoxia, and some other indexes say that the fetus is healthy. Thus, in this case, we don't know which is the gold standard, the true. In this, thus, from the cognitive computation point of view, we have to find unsupervised method, that method of clustering that are able to identify the diseased fetus or newborns or mother independently from the gold standard. That it's a very hard task, but we are currently working on it. And also we would like to predict some parameters that we are able to measure only after the birth. Okay, thus we are not able to sample some blood samples during the pregnancy because it's an invasive measure, for example, on this fetus. Thus we would like to indirectly estimate this parameter before the birth. Then we have the cognitive computation in sports. Professor Burettini also said that we are organizing the School of the Biomedical Engineering Group, Italian Biomedical Engineering Group, and thus we are very active in sport. In the team of sport also we have collaboration. I work with Professor Burettini and Professor Morettini, but we are in collaboration also with the Foro Italico, with the Università degli Studi Gabriele D'Annunzio di Chieti Pescara and the Ospedale Riuniti Ancona. In this field, we are trying to identify the apnea, especially particularly in extreme environment. For example, we have very rare data acquired during hiking on the Monte Rosa and in Luguce Peak in Himalaya. And we know that in this extreme environment, we have a very complex process in terms of adaptation in this extreme environment. Thus, we are evaluating the physiology behind this process. But also, we are trying also to estimate, as for the newborn, indirectly, parameters that are not easily acquirable during sport, for example, the tidal volume. In this context, the student that is working with us in our lab is Sofia Romagnoli, that is the PhD student of Professor Burettini. We also have the processing of data, signal, imaging in the image in the cognitive, in the neurological disease. This is a project in collaboration with the Consortium GARE also here, because we have a scholar student that is Selene Tomasini that work also with Professor Dragoni. In fact, this is one of the topics of the project, the first year project that Professor Burettini mentioned. In this context, we are working also with Ospedale Riuniti di Ancona, and the aim of this project is to early diagnose neurological disease. That can be the psychotic diseases or the, sorry, here I have a typo, the psychotic disease, but also the neurodegenerative disease like the Alzheimer or Parkinson. Then we have the cognitive computation applied on oncology. Here we have the collaboration with Professor Aldo Franco Dragoni, does also Selene Tomasini work on it, but also with Ospedale Riuniti Ancona, and we have also a PhD student that is Giulia Bruschi that is working on this topic. We would like to characterize the cancer that can be leukemia, cancer, or other type of cancer for the early diagnosis, but also we have here a new idea of cognitive computation that is merging different type of data. And it is a new analysis that is called multimodal analysis that guarantee the use of data, signal, and imaging together to have a common interpretation of the problem. For example, one idea of interpretation is here, that is the GradCam images that, as you see, we have with color map, we have different color that can highlight the presence or not of the cancer. Here, all my collaboration, all the university and industry that with I am collaborating. Specifically, I would like to mention 3 of them. Here, the University of Prague, because Professor Ksenia Sedova is very friendly, and if you would like to have students with her, thus we are open for Erasmus project and for Campus World with this institution. But with these to industry, we also give the possibility to do traineeship in these industries. Pegasus is here in Ancona, and Artia is in Milan. Thus, they give the possibility to go in Milan, but also to do the traineeship remotely. I thank you, and I simply say that this is the Brain website, Professor Burattini Show, where you can find all the topic that I present you, but you can follow us also in Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and sometime we publish some posts related to the internship.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I think that most of you already attend my course, that is Models and Control Biological Systems. For those who have not done yet, I think it will start soon. I manage the diabetes lab, that is a lab at the Department of Information Engineering that is devoted to the investigation through biomedical engineering, modeling, simulation of metabolic diseases and especially of diabetes. In the lab, there is a PhD that is working right now, that is Agnese Piersanti, and the proposal that I'm going to show you are some of them in collaboration, internally with Professor Burattini and Dr. Agnese Sbrollini that has already present. And after that, I will show you the national and international collaboration that we have on the topic. As the name of the course say, one of the main activity of the lab is devoted to the computational modeling and simulation in the field of diabetes and metabolism. But the field of metabolism is related to diabetes, of course, but not only to diabetes, because some specific research activities are dedicated to modeling the interaction between immune system and metabolism, that is especially important in the field of exercise, in order to understand how exercise affects metabolism and the immune system. Of course, models can be done at different scales, so we can go from minimal models to computational models in relation to the purpose that we would like to achieve, and in particular may be devoted to describe kinetics of substances in the body, to provide indirect estimation of relevant quantities, and this field is called quantitative physiology, or predict the effect of stimuli on the metabolism, as I said before, that can be meal, for example, so nutritional regimen and physical activity. Why developing models? Because government agencies like FDA encourage the use of these kind of tools in replacement or in addition to traditional techniques that are in vivo or in vitro testing in order to develop drugs. Okay, so it's one of the aim of such government agency. As I said before, this can be helpful in order to understand mechanism behind pathologies like diabetes, but may be also helpful to understand how stimuli such as meal or exercise, as I said before, affect all the process. For what concerns the meal, of course, things are more, there is more knowledge on that. For what concerns exercise, there is still much work to do. Another kind of topic is related to diabetes technology. When we talk about diabetes technology, we refer to hardware, software solution, devices that assist people in managing diabetes. And this includes devices such as continuous glucose monitoring, that is a technology that has been recently developed that replace or at least reduce the use of traditional finger pricks. Probably you know that people affected by diabetes has to monitor glucose concentration many times per day, and this is of course not particularly comfortable. So continuous glucose monitoring replace such a kind of analysis. Of course, continuous glucose monitoring produce many data, and this data should be analyzed. In this case, the way by which these data are summarized is through what is called CGM metrics. Okay, so these are parameters, indexes that summarize the information included inside the continuous glucose monitoring. But inside the definition of diabetes technology falls also the novel way by which insulin is administered. Probably you know that insulin is the only treatment for people affected by type 1 diabetes. Traditionally is given by infusion, subcutaneous infusion mainly, but there is research that is trying to develop alternative route of administration. One of these is inhaled insulin, and in particular, in our lab, there is Agnese that is working right now on this topic, also in collaboration with an USA company that is producing such a kind of insulin. The metrics or the information that we can extract from CGM, but not only from CGM, may be used in order to develop clinical decision support system in the field of type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and gestational diabetes. I would like to mention that this kind of diabetes, although they are included in the same word, has completely different origin and completely different outcomes. Okay, so it's like having 3 different pathologies. And for each of them, there is needed to create a clinical decision support system in order to understand which are the origin of the pathology, which are the outcome, and also strategies that may help to improve the management of the disease. And in particular, we are developing, in this field, we are developing clinical decision support system in order to, for example, predict the occurrence of hypoglycemia during exercise. For people having type 1 diabetes, hypoglycemia is one of the main risk conditions, and this is particularly common during exercise. So understanding how to prevent the occurrence of this kind of risk condition is particularly important for people suffering from this disease. Another kind of activities that we are performing since several years is the is related to gestational diabetes. Why gestational diabetes is a particularly important condition? Because it seems that the disease disappears at the end of the pregnancy. It comes up with pregnancies, when pregnancy starts, and it seems to disappear when pregnancy ends. In reality, this is not true, because this kind of condition is a risk condition to develop type 2 diabetes. So understanding what happens when gestational diabetes appears may help to prevent the occurrence of type 2 diabetes. And this can be done, of course, through model-based methodology in order to understand, to quantify the processes that are behind gestational diabetes, but this may be done also trying to create a clinical decision support system that classify people developing type 2 diabetes from people that are not developing type 2 diabetes. Moving to another topic, we comes back to the use of continuous glucose monitoring, but for this kind of topic that is that may be summarized under the heading digital biomarkers for non-invasive glycemic assessment, we are trying to overcome also the use of continuous glucose monitoring, at least not for diagnosis purpose, but for monitoring. This may be an important solution. Why? Because also continuous glucose monitoring that is classified as a mini-invasive solution is still invasive. So research is moving toward a non-invasive solution, a fully non-invasive solution. And in order to develop this non-invasive solution, we need to discover what is called digital biomarkers, that are parameters that probably describe a completely different system that may be useful in order to predict glycemia in a non-invasive way. So this is another kind of topic that we are on which we are currently working. Okay. Just a small remark on the software that we need to use on when we work on this kind of topic. The software depends on the aim. So possibly we can develop solution in MATLAB, but possibly we need to develop solution in more specific software that are dedicated to pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic modeling, as for example Monolix, or software that are more dedicated to data mining analysis. Okay, so it depends on what we need to do. For what concerns the collaboration, we have, as I said, the national and the international collaboration with the University of Rome for Italico, for example, for what concerns research on immunometabolism due to exercise, or the Medical University of Vienna, or the National Research Council of Italy, in the person of Dr. Andrea Tura, that possibly most of you know because he held a seminar inside the course last year. No? Okay. So for any information, you can refer to the BRAIN webpage that we show several times before, and if you
Okay, so morning to everyone. I am Alessandro Mengarelli, and in this brief presentation, I will show you some proposals for internship and projects relative to two courses. The first one is dynamical modeling of movement that I had in 2022 and that will be delivered on the next year. And the other course is bioengineering and motor rehabilitation that is held by Professor Sandro Fioretti. I present both, I refer to both these courses because basically the research activity, my research activity and the research activity of Professor Fioretti are practically superimposed. We work together, and so I present both, I refer to both courses. So I listed some 5 main topics that we are treated in our research group, and obviously for internship you can work on each one of these topics, and then for each main topic I produce a list of some subtopics. So the first main topic is human balance analysis. Basically, we treat the control of balance in humans in order to discover information on how the how works the control system of balance. So if you choose this topic, for instance, some of the major main topics are obviously the early identification disease by using a simple clinical task as standing balance, because basically standing balance is perhaps the most simple task. The subject is required to maintain standing balance and nothing else. But we can obviously we measure some quantities from this task, and then one of the final aim is to identify the presence of some diseases that affect the musculoskeletal system and neurological system with this simple task. Another possible application is the modeling of this task, modeling that can be achieved in 2 parallel ways. Mechanical modeling, so producing simple or complex models of balance, like the inverted pendulum and so on. Another the other application of modeling balance is the control side. So we apply some control architectures in order to mimic how the central nervous system works. And so for the identification of some significant parameters that reflect how our inner control works for maintaining balance. Obviously, in this field, also time series analysis is central, because as you probably know, one of the main quantities that are considered in balance analysis is the time course of the center of pressure, that can be analyzed with some tools that refer to the time series field in order to extract information about the inner dynamics that that can be recognized in the COP time course, and that obviously reflect how the subject control and maintain balance. And finally, in this field, we can also apply artificial intelligence tools and instruments for the identification and classification of, for instance, disease and so on. So in this field, these are the main subtopics that you can work on. Another field is the motion recognition of both upper and lower limbs from the processing of biosignals. I say biosignals because one of perhaps the first and historical application is the gesture recognition by the processing of the electromyographic signal. So the aim is to develop architectures and pipelines for passing from the recording of the forearm electrical activity to the recognition of the gestures performed with the hand or wrist. Obviously, in this field, one of the most important aspect is the feature extraction, and so you can work on the development of new feature extraction methods and feature fusion pipelines in order to improve the accuracy of the the gesture recognition of the upper limb in this case. I write biosignal because the MG signal is not the only signal that we can work on, because another possible project involves the integration of the EMG signal with other kind of signal, in this case inertial signals, so I mean acceleration, and principally the acceleration measured by inertial measurement units, in order to also in this case to improve the accuracy of our architectures, but also enlarge the range of the movement that we can identify and study. The last point in this case is the investigation of alternative methods for recording muscles activity. For instance, we are working on the mechanomyogram, that is a technique that records the muscle activity, not recording the electrical activity of the muscle, but measuring the vibration of the muscle when the subject performs the movement. Mechanomyogram can be studied by, for instance, microphones, or also in this case with inertial sensors. Another field, also in this case, we are talking about detection of movement from EMG signal, but in this case we are focusing on the motion intent detection, which is the main difference. The main difference is that with respect to the previous slide, in this case, we are working with the EMG signal, but we are considering only a very small time window of the signal. And this is a portion, an epoch of the signal that indicate that happens before the movement actually happens. So we want to identify the movement before it is fully achieved. And this particular application of the gesture recognition have a strong importance in real application, because in real time you want to recognize the movement before it is achieved. Otherwise, it is useless to identify movement after it is performed. So in this case, we can work on some topics that obviously working on the transient EMG windows for real-time application. Also in this case, and it is fundamental to develop techniques and methodologies for feature extraction and fusion of feature also belonging to different fields, EMG features, but also, for instance, features extracted from inertial sensors. Another possible application is the development of multi-user architecture, because when you train, for instance, a classifier on this kind of data, this classifier works in a very good way for a specific subject. However, if you use the same trained classifier on data relative to another subject, it fails completely to identify correctly the movement. So in this field, it is fundamental to have a tool that you can train on data, and then you can use on many different subjects without the need for retraining your model. And so this means the development of multi-user interfaces. The last point is working on the intent detection, not only on the upper limb, so the arm, but also on the shoulder joint, and in particular, currently we are working on amputees subjects, so subject that does not have the arm, and so you can likely imagine that working with signals belonging from an amputee subject is very different with respect to treat an healthy subject, because after the amputation, also the morphology of muscle changes, and thus this means additional problem in this field, but additional occasions for research. Okay. In this case, we are talking about the estimation, the use of the EMG signal, in this case, not for the recognition of movement, but for the continuous tracking of joint kinematics. So what we done in this case, we have EMG signals from upper or lower limb muscle, and we want to obtain joint kinematics in a continuous fashion. In this case, we do not use classification techniques, but in this case, regression techniques, in order to obtain a continuous displacement, angular displacement. Also, in this case, the practical application is the application of these techniques to robotic or prosthetic devices. The last topic is the inertial sensing used for motion analysis. So, in brief, is the use of IMU that record acceleration, angular velocity, and in some cases the magnetic field, in order to obtain, track a subject, to obtain not only the pose, so the orientation of the subject in the space, but also for estimating the displacement. So in this field, there are some possibilities that involve the development of the calibration procedure for, and this is focused on the device in particular. We can also work on the recognition of the daily living activity from this kind of data, so working on raw data, the tracking of a human within a closed environment, so not only obtaining the orientation in the space, but also tracking the movement of a subject in a closed environment. And also, as I said in the initial slide, in one of the first slides, working on the IMU for recording muscular activity. So this project obviously involves a part of signal acquisition in the laboratory and a part of signal processing. So all these projects will be developed in the movement analysis laboratory, and you can see the people involved in the practical activity of the lab. So for more information, you can refer directly to me or directly to the BRAIN website. Thanks.
Okay, here we are. I hope that people attending from remote see the presentation. I don't know if we have to check. They should also see the presentation as well. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Unfortunately, I am the one separating you from the lunch break, so I will be particularly brief. I will present a few ideas about biomedical data protection, which is also the name of the course I teach in the master degree, in the second year of the master degree course. And shortly, for those who did not attend the course, everything starts from the concept of biomedical data. We every day produce a lot of biomedical data, not only inside hospitals or healthcare facilities, but also outside. For example, in everyday life, through our smart watches and so on. There are many types of biomedical data. Obviously, examinations, health monitoring through biomedical devices, medical imaging, laboratory results, but also nowadays we have patient-generated health data that we every day produce. And the point is that the amount of biomedical data is increasing very quickly, and it is becoming even worrying because the amount of biomedical data is increasing far more than any other kind of data. For example, it is increasing by 36% per year, while manufacturing data increases by 6% or 10% for financial services and so on. So we have a huge amount of biomedical data we need to protect, and privacy basically is the main issue related to biomedical data and personal data in general. In fact, biomedical data are personal data, and in Europe there is an important regulation, which is GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, which was approved in 2016 and enforced in 2018. And it involves all European citizens, even abroad. And it gives a lot of measures we need to implement for protecting personal data. Personal data are even simple data like name, surname, address, and so on. But there is health information inside personal data, and health information is a sensitive type of personal data we need to protect. So this is the main rationale, the main motivation of the course I provide to students of the master's degree, and also the area in which we propose, together with the research group I work with, internships and thesis works in this area. It is very strongly related to cybersecurity, and in fact, protecting data also means protecting assets, protecting devices, protecting networks, protecting digital files, and so on. There is indeed a strong record of cyber attacks against healthcare facilities and hospitals. These are some newspaper articles of the last years, which testify that the risk, or the cyber risk of hospitals and healthcare facilities is continuously increasing. And we may think that these kind of things only happen abroad, for example, in the US. The previous papers were from the US, but actually, here in Italy and also in our region, we are also subject to cyber attacks. For example, these are two pieces of newspaper articles from 2015, so quite old. And there was a very small hospital in our region that was attacked at that time. And since then, many other attacks, cyber attacks, happened. And there is some strong impact on health because data and technology is driving healthcare services, and so healthcare services may be strongly affected by cyber attacks. For example, in 2020, there was this reporting of a suspected death by a cyber attack in a German hospital. So I believe we don't need further motivations. These are some research lines we pursue with our group. I'm from the telecommunications group. We also collaborate with the computer science group because cybersecurity, as you may know, is an interdisciplinary area, both from these two areas and also others. Concerning the biomedical data protection course and the related internships, we basically propose activities along these three lines, also some others, but these are the three main lines along which we propose internships, works, and theses. The first one is cyber risk assessment. Cyber risk assessment is a very important step of cyber defense and data protection. So basically, you have an hospital, you have an healthcare facilities, you have a company or an institution, and you need to assess the level of cyber risk it is subject to. And it is compulsory, it is recommended, it is due for some institutions like hospitals, it is compulsory. For others, it is recommended, and it is very difficult because if you take one company and you say, okay, what's the probability that you are subject to an attack and what's the impact of that attack? It's very hard to assess. There are methods, scientific methods, obviously,
that are under development, and we try to contribute to this. The second is blockchain technology, which is a very trendy technology that has grown very quickly after its introduction in 2009. And nowadays, blockchain is being used for many purposes, among which data interoperability, data certification, and others. And a very nice line of research is to apply blockchain in the healthcare area, in the healthcare sector, for example, for certifying data, for biometrics, and for many other purposes. So we propose activities in this line as well. And the third one I would like to show you today is a biometric authentication. We are working towards the improvement of biometric authentication. Nowadays, we all use biometric authentication. It was not so used until a few years ago, but nowadays we all have our smartphones with the fingerprint sensor, and then data is acquired. The fingerprint is a biomedical data, is a personal data as well, so it has to be protected. Recognition has to be efficient. There are a lot of issues, of technological issues and research issues we try to contribute to inside the main area of biometric authentication, which is both related to biomedical data and to cybersecurity and identity protection. So basically, this is the general idea I would like to give to you. Then obviously, there is my email address in the first slide, so please don't hesitate to contact me for asking more details. And maybe some of you attended the last graduation sessions, and there were works in these lines presented, so maybe some of you already know. In general, we propose internships on applied research topics, both with external companies and with our university. They can be performed at our department or in collaboration with healthcare institutions, in particular the Ospedale Uniti Hospital, which is also part of our university. And as a third option, we propose activities in collaboration with some companies. Two of them are reported here. One is BeMind, which is a company in Iesi, developing software for healthcare facilities and for treatments. The other one is a spin-off company of our university we are involved in, working in cybersecurity and data protection technology. And then after the internship, obviously, the natural prosecution is to develop thesis on, in this case, on scientific research topics with the possible aim of publishing some scientific paper, like these three I have reported here, that are the outcome of research activities in biomedical data protection involving myself together with PhD students, postdoc researchers, or other colleagues from this area. Okay, that's all. I finished. Thank
you. Now I would like to present you some activities that you can perform in order to reach your degree in the field of biomaterials and custom-made prostheses. In the lower portion of the screen, you can see the team that it is composed by me, Professor Bellezze, Professor Luzzi, and we collaborate together also with Professor Mandolini that you will listen to in the next presentation, and especially in the field of custom-made prostheses. So the students that can be involved in our projects are the students that follow these two courses. So my course, Biomaterials for Medical Devices and Prostheses, and the course of Professor Mandolini, Methods and Tools for Biomedical Product Design. So now I will show you some activities that some of your colleagues have already performed in order to get their degree. So as for regard the custom-made prostheses, you can see that it is possible to work in the field of the development of a specific kind of prostheses that can be used by the patients. In fact, these are real cases that we have studied and performed with a medical doctor, a maxillofacial surgeon that
collaborate with us since a long time, maybe more than 10 years. And as you can see, we have treated, for example, a defect in the orbital floor. And as you can see, the first patient, it has a significant asymmetry as for regard the orbital floor in the previous images. And after the positioning of the prosthesis that we have designed, and it has been reconstructed using the mirror area of the patient itself. And as you can see, it is possible to correct completely the asymmetry. As for regard the second patient, it is again a real case and a custom-made prosthesis. It has been designed in order to correct a syndrome that it is called Apert syndrome, that it is a syndrome that affects the frontal bone of the skull. And again, a custom-made prosthesis can be designed. And in the lower portion of the screen, again, another real case that has been treated, and it is a parietal osteoma in the skull of the patient, and a custom-made prosthesis that has been designed and then printed by the use of a 3D printer directly in titanium. So custom-made and directly implantable on the patient. So in order to perform these activities, as you can easily imagine, it is necessary to know a bit how to use an interface software that it is called Mimics, that allows the interfacing between the scanning equipment, so the CT equipment, the MRI equipment, and the 3D printers, and also some requirements as for regard the freeform modeling. So using, for example, the mirroring area of the skull, and so in order to design the other portion of the skull that, for example, can be affected by an osteoma. And we have this kind of equipment in our department. And so the students that are involved in such projects can be directed in order to take a good affinity with this kind of softwares. And this can be very interesting because we have also some facilities as for regard the 3D printer. Of course, we do not have all the machines, but we can use some machines that are already in the university in the 3+ laboratory, and also some printer that can be found outside. You can have also some possibility in the field of biomaterials. So again, these are some projects that some students have already carried on. So for example, in the characterization as for regard the physical and chemical characterization of specific kind of medical devices. So in the first images at the top, you can see the so-called aligners that can be worn by the patient in order to correct malocclusions of the teeth. And these kind of devices should be substituted every 15 days. And some problems can occur with these devices, for example, problems connected to transparencies or micro cracks. And this can be studied by the use of specific kind of equipment dedicated to the characterization. We had also some problems, projects together with Professor Scalise in the manufacturing of phantoms that can be used in order to simulate the depth of a melanoma. And so in the development of an instrumentation that it is non-invasive in order to establish the depth of this lesion of the skin and in order to simulate the depth of a melanoma. In the lower pictures, you can see some projects that have been carried on in the field of tissue engineering. Especially, we are focused on bone tissue engineering. So the possibility to manufacture scaffolds that can be seeded by cells in order to reproduce the bone tissue, the natural bone tissue. And so in order to treat a specific kind of pathologies that can affect the bone tissue. So here, for example, you can see this is a polycaprolactone scaffold that has been printed, again, by the use of a 3D printing equipment. And on the right, you can see some cells that, some rat stromal cells that have been cultured over the scaffold and have differentiated over the scaffold so that some bone tissue can be regenerated over the scaffold. At the moment, we have also the possibility to cooperate with Professor Pasquapina Ciarmela at the Faculty of Medicine, because they have such a kind of an equipment that it is a 3D bioprinting. This is an equipment that allows at the same time the printing of gels and cells. So they can be printed together in order to realize different kind of architectures and especially different kind of scaffolds that can be already printed using the cells inside. And this can be very interesting also because we are really at the beginning of the usage of such an equipment. And so some opportunities can arise for the student, especially in this field. So these are the facilities that we have in our department. So for example, you can see the Phantom device up on the left, that it is the freeform model that allows the modeling of prostheses freehand, or you can have the possibilities to use the Mimics software that allows the interfacing between the scans, the radiographic scans, and the 3D printing, recreating anatomical models, some 3D printers and other equipment that you can find at the laboratory. So as for regard me, I have finished, and now my colleague, Professor Bellezza, will go on with the other opportunities, especially in the fields of polymers and corrosion of metals. Thank you.
In the previous slide, you see this instrumentation for thermal analysis, is differential scanning calorimetry, and this is a machine for making the to determine the tensile strength of material. So our specialization in our department is to characterize materials, and we can characterize polymers like these PVC feeding tubes. You know that the PVC, the pure PVC without additives, is a stiff and glassy material. So if you have to use this material, you have to add plasticizer. The plasticizers, the function of the plasticizer is to decrease the glass transition temperature. So the material became transformed from glassy state to the elastomeric, more or less elastomeric state. With the DSC, so the differential scanning calorimetry, we can determine this parameter, and we can also study what kind of additives are useful for some application like this. On the other hand, we can make also some specimens dedicated to addressed to the tensile machine and determine the typical stress strain plot. And if we decrease the glass transition temperature with the plasticizer, we can see the glassy, the original glassy behavior of the material became more or less elastomeric material. After more than 25 experience in corrosion science, I studied also in the past with students the corrosion of some metals. Titanium is quite diffused for prosthesis, but we consider also magnesium alloy, which is a metal that became interesting in the past and now, and is quite difficult to study. So what we performed was, for example, to study the corrosion of magnesium alloy, and we can make the typical or classical electrochemical tests, but at the same time consider that magnesium develop hydrogen in a solution simulating the body fluids. We can measure with a quite old method also the evolution of hydrogen, which is strictly related to the corrosion rate that we measure with the typical electrochemical methods. Qualitatively, what we can see is that the corrosion resistance increase because there are some protective effects due to the corrosion products formed on the magnesium alloy surface. This means that hydrogen increase in any case, but the slope decrease because during the formation of corrosion products, obviously this protects the surface of magnesium alloy, and so the decrease of the production of hydrogen. This is only a schematic example that we can to consider what we can do in our labs. So it's all. Okay. Do you have any?
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'm Marco Mandorini. I'm the professor of electric course, which is entitled Methods and Tools for Biomedical Product Design. This course will start the next week and is on the second year. So I come from Department of Industrial Engineering and Mathematical Sciences, and here you can find some of my contacts. And yeah, today I would like to present you some of our previous experiences on some research projects that you can take a look and evaluate for your possible internships. So I will present you 4 main topics, but before doing that, I would like to acknowledge the colleagues of mine working on these research topics, who are Agnese Brunzini, Manila Caragiuni, and Mara Candelari. And furthermore, I would like to also acknowledge the other colleagues of this faculty of engineering, as well as medicine faculty. So in particular, as already Professor Mazzoli told you, I cooperate with Alina Mazzoli, Lorenzo Scalise, and Antonio Gigante from the medicine faculty. So yeah, the first topic I would like to present you deals with numerical simulation in medicine. And in particular, you can find here 2 different subtopics. The first one concerns the analysis of the so-called mandibular advancement devices like this one, used for patients suffering from OSA, so obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. So those devices are used for protruding the mandible, so avoiding the apnea during sleeping. And by employing numerical simulation software tools, we are able to evaluate the teeth displacement, stress on ligaments, and other kind of results, which are very, very important, relevant to evaluate how to prescribe the best device according to the characteristics of the patient. The second subtopic concerning the numerical simulation is in the context of knee joints, and in particular we cooperate with University of Brussels as well as the Faculty of Medicine to, as you can see here, for example,
to evaluate and compare different total knee arthroplastic implants, as well as to evaluate the effects of these implants on tibia, menisci, and other ligaments of the knee joints. And I forgot to mention that the first subtopic is carried out in cooperation with the University of Padua and some companies developing such a kind of appliances. And the second topic deals with design and manufacturing of custom-made implants and devices for cranio-maxillofacial surgery. So here you can see some pictures of the devices that we have developed in previous experiences, so with other students, master degree students, and in particular, those devices deals with this one, for example, a custom-made mold for realizing an implant for restoring the orbital socket, as well as, yes, this device, which is used for properly orienting and positioning the implant inside the orbital socket. The third topic concerns extended reality in medicine. So actually, since a couple of years ago, cooperating with a maxillofacial surgeon, we have developed an augmented reality app for Microsoft HoloLens. You can see here the app. This is very helpful for overcoming traditional issues of physical cutting guides that surgeons typically use for craniomaxillofacial surgeries. So the surgeon, by using an head-mounted display like this one, and is able to visualize the application over the glasses, and also, for example, as you can see here, the holograms suggesting surgeons where to cut the bone as well as how to position the bone. And yes, this is a really interesting and novel research topic that we would like, and we are pushing forward now in the future. And furthermore, we are starting cooperation with the University of Antwerp in Belgium for developing an extended reality application, in this case, virtual reality application for visualizing 4D scans. So total body 4D scans in, yes, a virtual reality head-mounted display for education, training, and rehabilitation. The last topic concerns the additive manufacturing applied to custom-made insoles. So by using computer-aided design software tools, 3D printers, and other sensors, we have characterized different cell types for developing this kind of probably, yeah, here the figure is cut, but you can see here a custom-made implant with a trabecular structure inside here, and with also a variable density in order to relieve the plantar pressure and to avoid local peaks of pressure. And these activities carried out in cooperation with a local manufacturing company of insoles, as well as University of Loughborough in UK. So I went very fast. And for further information, you can list here all the recent publications that we have written about the 4 topics that I have.
Thank you, Marco, for giving me a few minutes. So I am Giacomo Palmieri. I belong to the machine mechanics group of the Department of Industrial Engineering and Mathematical Sciences. And probably most of the students knows me from the bachelor degree. I have not a course on the master degree, but anyway, I'm showing you some interesting topics for research that you can exploit for thesis. So main topics of my research activity are collaborative robotics for rehabilitation and human-robot collaboration. In detail, Here you can see the first activity, that is using collaborative robots to develop rehabilitation protocols for the upper limb rehabilitation. Here you can see the activity of one of my PhD students, Georgia, that worked on the design and prototyping of this system that we tested in the clinic of the medicine faculty of our university. The objective of this work was to use a collaborative robot, so a robot that is safe to be used in contact with the human, to execute some exercises used to neuro rehabilitation for stroke patients. The other topic we work on is human-centered manufacturing. It means develop innovative methods for safe and ergonomics for operators in the manufacturing, using cobots and exoskeletons. Once again, cobots are a new type of robots that can help the human in working activities, sharing the space, the workspace, and collaborating with him. And there are also new type of exoskeletons, passive exoskeletons, as you can see in this slide, that can be worn by the operator, helping him to make some heavy-duty tasks like lifting heavy loads or working with the arms in an high position. We can exploit two labs for these activities. One is in Ancona, in our department, and the other one is in Iesi, where we are working on a new lab that is on Industry 4.0 technologies, and we have here a large section of collaborative robotics, so we can dispose of several robots and mobile robots and exoskeletons equipped with the grippers and the vision systems to develop high-level controls. And just
okay. Okay, thank you, Laura. Good afternoon to everyone. With this speech, we are moving on the part of electromagnetics. In electromagnetics, there is the first presentation and another complementary presentation for in the next speech. It is our team. We are some professor, PhD student, and researcher. It is a list of the topic. We have many topics. Some of these is the topics of our research. Many of these are also involved in internship for 3 years and for 2 years for the master degree and for the bachelor degree. So some of these are only involved for our research and not in the internship. Or some of these topics was developed in the formal internship, and now we are moving to other topic that we think they are more actual of these for the research. The first one is the vibration chamber. For more than 20 years, we are working on the vibration chambers. What is a vibration chamber? The vibration chamber is an environment, is a measurement setup for electromagnetic compatibility. So for emission, for disturbance, for susceptibility, and it's a very good environment because we can have the field that is statistically uniform, isotropic, and polarized. Is statistically. So after an average, we cannot have this kind of. First measurement of vibration chambers was military measurement for the weapons and to support the electromagnetic some electromagnetic disturbance. But after in the reverse chamber, we did many other measurements, not only for susceptibility and emissions, but also the reverse chambers are a multi-path environment. When we can simulate an indoor propagation or outdoor propagation for the wires. Again, in the reverse chamber, we can do the measurement of shield and effectiveness, and also is not very important for biomedical engineering. We can obtain an radiation diagram for antennas that usually is obtained in the opposite of the reverse chamber, in an anechoic chamber. In this part, the simulation of the reverse chamber of some multi-path environment. In our chamber, we can simulate indoor and outdoor environment, indoor and outdoor scenarios. In this picture, we can see the inner of our reverse chamber with a mobile device, 5G device controlled by a PC, a 5G base station at millimeter frequency. This base station was directly connected to the live network of TIM, and this is the first millimeter base station installed in a production environment in Italy. And it is the same picture with another angle. Here we can see a 4G base station and a 5G base station, but a lower frequency at 3.7 gigahertz. In parallel to the measurement, also we are doing some simulations that for the complexity of the problem can be performed only on high performance computer or the most important computer centers in Europe. Before we used the Cineca computers, and the last one was in France to the in Paris. It was another important computer. In the simulation of the reverse chamber is quite difficult because the reverse chamber is an overmodeled cavity, so is a cavity that is electrically large, and the discretization of the cell, of the volume of the reverse chamber must be very fine to have some reliable results. The importance of the reverse chamber, of the simulation on high performance computer, and that we can do many analyses in a unique job, where the electromagnetic problem is solved with finely different time domain method, and after in the time domain, and after we obtain the behavior in the frequency domain with a fast Fourier transform. At the end, we can check the statistical results, applying some statistical simulation on the results, on the findings. It is a unique job, and it can be done for the complexity of this job only on a supercomputer. Other research was related to the human body. First one, I will present some results of the focalization of the electromagnetic wave inside the human body. It's a property of the time reversal, and in particular, how we obtain this focalization. We are injecting a part in the source antenna inside a cavity, a resonant cavity. In the resonant cavity, we have some resonance frequencies, and we are probe the field inside received inside them. We have the main part and also many other effects due to the multiple reflection on the guide. The time reversal technique consists to take this received signal, invert it in the time, doing again as source in the cavity, and the received signal inside in the point where we probed it, we can reconstruct the original signal. So we can concentrate the power. In this case, we can concentrate the power in this point. We can concentrate the power in the time domain, but also in the space domain. So we have a time focalization and a spatial focalization. Other simulations with FDTD was done for some wearable device. Here is an example of an heart rate monitor, but also we simulate smartphones, the clock, and other kind of device. So we can, with the use of high performance computer, we can obtain an accurate description of the human body. We have the map of the human body with a solution of 1 cubic millimeter, and so the memory requirement for this simulation is high, and also is high the computer requirement. The map was achieved by the foundation in Switzerland, and we did the simulation with the same electromagnetic technique that is the fine difference entanglement. And another part of electromagnetic shielding, the shielding is important to protect some electronic device, but also to protect the people for electromagnetic radiation. In this case, we have I will present a selective shielding with a composite glass with a multi-layer of glass and metallic part, and we have to with the shield we have to some point to be optimized. In particular, in the summer, we don't want that the sun is entering inside the room and is heating the room. But in the winter, we don't want that the heating system, the power exit from the slide. So we have to filter the heat, and we have to filter the ray of the sun. Moreover, when we are using some mobile phone, we want that the electromagnetic wave, we want to have the connection with the mobile phone. So we have that the electromagnetic power at the mobile phone frequency is entering inside the room. It is with this when we do a selective filter that where the 4G, 5G frequency can pass and can go inside, we reduce the power lost and so we can save the environment to reducing the power that we need for this filter, but also we can protect the people because the mobile device emit less power to reach the base station. another simulation. They are new topics. Is a simulation of reconfigurable intelligent surface to focus the beam of mobile phone is for the 4G, the 5G, and also in the next 6G protocol to concentrate the power where the receiving device is, with the same results we obtained before with the filter. So lower electric power, electromagnetic power, and reduce the exposure for the human body. It is a project that started 2 years ago and will end at the end of this year, an European project. Last, it is a new topic. So there is the simulation of a electromagnetic simulation of a quantum computing. Is a new topic. Some simulation can be done. There is some emulators, but last week we did a run on a really quantum computing. And at the end, but there is some simulation, some application of electromagnetism with Python. I wrote for bachelor internship only, but it's not only for the bachelor, because Python, we can drive this simulation on high performance computing with Python. All the simulation and also the use of quantum computing are based on Python. And so if we want just to write some solution of problem or electromagnetic problem in Python, is a bachelor internship, but Python is strongly involved also in the bachelor, in the master degree internships. I am finished. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. I'm Joseph, and I'm here today on behalf of Professor Marco Farina, and we are from the microscopy lab. We are working on a novel scanning probe microscopy technique, which we call scanning microwave microscopy. And Professor Farina is handling a course called Fields and Waves in Biomedical Systems. So we are multidisciplinary researchers, including electronic and biomedical engineers, physicists, and chemists. And we are currently having collaborations with Cornell Lehigh University from US and ETS from Canada, and with Biophysics Department of JKU from Austria, and also one company called Alcatera for imaging applications. And we have recently finished 2 major projects with the US Army Research Office and the US Air Force Office of Scientific Research. And one project was completely dedicated to the biological applications of this kind of a microwave microscopy. And we are still continuing some of the topics from that project, so I will tell you. So as some introduction about what this kind of a microscopy is, probably you can recall from your high school, if you know some optics, you may have wondered like how this microwave, which is in the centimeter wavelength, can be used to image something in the nanometer scale. So we know from the basics that this is not possible directly because of the diffraction limit, or the Abbess limit we call. And to overcome this, people use, for example, here you can see an electromagnetic source, which is an antenna, which actually have 2 regions. One is the near field and the other one is the far field. And this diffraction limit applies to the far field. So when we go to the near field, we can overcome this kind of a diffraction limit and we can achieve the super resolution. So for example, with the microwave, in a centimeter wavelength, we can able to image something in the nanometer scale. So in this case, it is no longer depends on the wavelength of the signal that we are using, but it depends mostly on the kind of geometry of the probe that we are using. So how sharp your probe is and how close it is to the sample, because there is some rules that your probe should be closer with tiny fractions of wavelength that you're eliminating your sample with it. So based on this kind of a microscopy, new kind of a microscopy has been developed, which we call usually scanning microwave microscopy. So as I said, the distance between the sample and your probe should be maintained. So the people actually integrated this kind of a microscope with the usual scanning probe microscopies, which are STM, scanning tunneling microscope, or with an AFM, which is atomic force microscopy. So there are some commercial SMMs available, and that is based on AFM. And in our microscopy lab, we have both systems based on STM, scanning tunneling microscopy, and also with AFM, which is the atomic force microscopy. For example, you can see our system that we have in our lab, which is based on AFM. You can see it, and it is connected to the vector network analyzer, because this is a microwave microscopy. So we need to send the microwave signal. So vector network analyzer acts as a detector and a source for the microwave signal. So the standard microscopy, for example, you can see it here. So we will send the microwave signal up to the AFM tip. So, and we actually measure the scattering parameters of the microwave signal, and then we can do some calibration. And after that, you can actually get your material's properties, the electromagnetic properties of your material under test. For example, like permittivity, permeability, conductivity, or resistivity of your sample in the test. So this is the basic of the microwave microscopy. And as I said, the standard SMM, we actually inject the microwave signal directly into the AFM tip. And it actually creates some complications. For inorganic samples, there is no problem. Well, of course, some problems, but not this much. But when we consider to biological samples, and when you have to work in liquid environment, this actually had a lot of challenges, because microwaves actually disperse through all the waters and the liquid environment buffer solution that you have. So in order to avoid that, recently Professor Farina invented a new kind of a technique. People were trying to avoid all these challenges. So he recently invented and patented this kind of a microscopy we call inverted SMM. So in this case, actually using some kind of a transmission line, which actually transmits the microwave signal, and we directly deposit the biological samples on top of this kind of a transmission line, and we measure with the AFM. So in this case, there's nothing to do with the AFM because it's completely intact. So you don't, any kind of a scanning probe microscopy can be simply converted into this kind of a microwave microscopy. So this case, we actually directly deposit the sample on this kind of a transmission line, and the water is actually both is in the transmission line. So the AFM is not get affected a lot by this kind of liquid environment in this case. So this is specifically designed for biological applications to measure biological samples. So SMM is having a huge advantage in measuring biological samples. And recently it has been shown that a normal cell and a cancerous cell is having a huge difference when you measure the impedance. So measuring what SMM is doing is basically measuring the impedance, and from that we are converting to other material properties. So measuring something at this gigahertz frequency, because recently we worked with biologists and we also found that when measuring cells, a normal cell and unhealthy cell, from 3 kilohertz up to 10 gigahertz, and what we found is it is having a wide distribution of dielectric properties in the gigahertz range. So for example, a normal cell and an unhealthy cell is having a huge deviation in the gigahertz frequency range. And of course, microwave is in the gigahertz range. So studying something like this could help in enhancing further studying more and more in depth to this kind of problems with microwaves. So here you can see like a single cell of bacteria is imaged by SMM, and you can see the dielectric constant of this kind of a cell measured with microwaves at 19 gigahertz. And not only microwaves is having this kind of advantage, but microwaves can penetrate through any kind of a dielectric sample. So not only you see the surface, but also with microwaves, you can see subsurface characteristics of your biological samples. And compared to the optical techniques, for example, SNOM, which is a scanning near field optical microscopy, which needs your sample to be labeled with the fluorescent dye. But with microwaves, you don't have to label your sample at all. Sometimes the labeling with the fluorescent dye can change the properties of the sample. And in this case, it doesn't need any labeling, and also can able to see subsurface characteristic. Here you can see a kind of a myofibrils, which is a muscle cell. You can see the subsurface electromagnetic characterization of this kind of a cell with SMM. And recently we have, after developing this inverted SMM, recently we have shown for the first time a vital mitochondrial measurement with SMM in liquid. So this is a kind of a first demonstration. As we know, mitochondria is playing major roles in most of the degenerative diseases and cancers. So as I said, studying this kind of mitochondria with at the microwave signal could help us to understand more of the mitochondria's contribution in this kind of diseases. And recently we worked with the biologists and developed a kind of a functionalized graphene field effect transistor based biosensor for detecting COVID viruses. And our designed biosensor was able to detect multivariant COVID viruses, and this has been successfully also published recently. And so combining all these, the topics that currently we are offering for the master thesis is we are trying to go beyond what we did with the mitochondria in liquid to do some quantitative analysis. So we are using this ISMM setup, which I showed you, to further characterize this mitochondria in liquid. And then also we are characterizing exosomes using AFM and ISMM. Exosomes are small vesicles. They are like in the size of 30 nanometer to 100 nanometer. So this kind of a scanning microscopy is perfectly suitable for that. And exosomes are actually able to cross biological barriers and transport functional nucleic acids between the cells. So they are actually a kind of a drug delivery vehicles too. So studying these kind of exosomes further in terms of its structures and electromagnetic properties would also enhance gene therapy kind of things. And also we have the functionalized graphene transistor-based biosensor, which can not only applied also for COVID detection, but also for other type of detection and sensing. So we can use it for further. And also these topics involves some electromagnetic modeling of your AFM tip sample and with the microwaves, how it is interacting with the sample in order to get some quantitative details out of it. So all these things we have at the moment, and if you want to contact us, you are welcome to visit our lab and to meet Professor Farina for further information. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ralph Barbosa, and I'm a researcher working.
Speak a little louder because
yes. Okay, they are online. Okay, good. Okay, I'm Ralph Barbosa, and I'm a researcher, and I work with Professor Liana Lucchetti. Unfortunately, she's not here, so I will be presenting, let's say, the classes she gives on about nanotechnology in her stead. Now, what's nanotechnology is about? It's just a discipline where you study tools, and you take tools from nanotechnology and also for physics to develop whole complex of system that helps you to study, let's say, biological phenomena. For example, you can use nanoparticle as probe. You can use tools from physics like optical microscopy or nanoscopy to probe and understand all the biological interaction that you have. Now, certain information that you can get when you study biotechnology is how to develop tool for instance, to study molecular organization of cells, organelles, also at cellular level. And the various tools that you can learn and develop by attending a typical class of on biotechnology is just basic optics, because it helps you to understand the basics of microscopy. And when you start your classes on microscopy, the first thing that becomes a brick wall is just the concept of resolution. And once you get there, you will understand that there are techniques that helps you to break what we call, let's say, the Abbe limit on optical resolution. So you go to diffraction limited techniques where you can go to confocal microscopy, or you can also use super resolve optical techniques. And even you can transition from optical techniques to non-optical techniques where you have, let's say, atomic force microscopy, and also SNOM where you are going more or less toward, let's say, nanoscopy. Now, what can be some application of, let's say, that you can encounter when you do nanotechnology? Fundamentally, you can think about optical tweezer, where you can use light to micro-manipulate particles or system, even cells. You can use also optics in the field of optogenetics to probe or to understand, let's say, lively cells. And everything more or less is based on the use of laser, and also is something that you, let's say, learn and develop how to use laser in the field of biology. Other application that you can encounter where more or less you are going from just the tool, but to develop diagnostic system can be microfluidics. So you can, let's say, put a cell in solutions and can use microfluidical system and combine it with microscopic techniques. And by developing those microfluidical systems, you will encounter also micromechanical technology where you have to miniaturize your device in order not to waste a reagent or, let's say, cellular cultures. And in the same area, you will end up having to do with what we call electrowetting, where you have to understand the interaction between your cellular culture that can be in a liquid form or an aqueous form with the substrate. And also those cellular culture or liquid form of, let's say, reagent can be manipulated with light, and you will be entering the field of what we call optofluidics. So the interesting thing is that nanotechnology is highly multidisciplinary. Okay, so you will end up with, let's say, depthing your knowledge in quantum mechanics. For instance, when you study nanoparticle, you need to understand, let's say, the physics behind the nanoparticles. So why they absorb and how they absorb light, or how they interact with the environment. So you will think about, let's say, energy level and also the behavior of nanoparticle. Something that can also be interesting is that nanomagnets, also polymeric material, they can be also in nanoparticle form. So you will end up combining your knowledge in physics with knowledge in chemistry. And those are just, let's say, tools that you can bring from various disciplines and combine them in order to build, let's say, efficient thing in nanotechnology. Okay, and certain application can be, let's say, nanomagnets in MRI. You can use them for biosensors, optical biosensors, and also few things that at least are common to nanotechnology and what we actually do in our labs is the use of liquid crystal to, let's say, build platform where you can imagine, let's say, optical devices that can be useful for nanotechnology. Okay. Now, one of the topics that we offer in our lab is the control of wettability of complex field or complex fluid in engineered surface. Okay, those surface can be just plain surface, coated surface. Certain of them can be, let's say, surface that generate electrical field. So those are things that you can learn when you, let's say, come and visit us in our lab. Now, what wettability mean? If you're a biologist, you know that to analyze some analyte, what you need to deposit it on a certain surface. Okay, so you have to understand how that surface can react with everything that you can put on top of that surface. And usually you can imagine how liquids interact with surface. Okay, and usually what happens is that when you put them a liquid on top of surface, sometimes it's wet, sometimes it doesn't wet. So this is why you have to understand the concept of wettability. Okay, so the concept of wettability is very, very important, especially for those doing nanotechnology, because you will be dealing always with fluid that are very, very complex. Okay, for instance, you can think about DNA in solution, and when you have some DNA in solution at certain concentration, they can behave like liquid crystals that are just certain form of matter where you have much more organization, so you don't have any more randomness when you have in isotopic liquids. And what we are doing now in our lab is recently we are studying certain liquid that are called ferroelectric liquid crystal because they can generate spontaneous polarization. So we found that they have, let's say, much more complex interaction with surfaces. So when you are interested in understanding those topics, you can come and visit us. Here is just some of results that we had. Let's say, unfortunately, they are not everything anymore. Everything depends on your time scale. But here, for instance, you can see a liquid crystal droplet on a coated glass. Okay, and it's just a liquid crystal that is based on chromoline, and chromoline is just, let's say, an organic material that in aqueous form can form also liquid crystalline phase. Okay, and something that you can notice that when you apply light on it, you tend to flatten the droplet. Okay, and we show that also by, let's say, by moving the optical beam, you can, let's say, transport your droplets on the surface. So you can, in principle, use those techniques to move droplets, combine them, let them react, analyze them, separate them. You can do a lot of things with them. So with us, you will be learning also how to manipulate liquid at, let's say, micro scale level. Okay, so microliter, just or even nanoliter, just to give you, let's say, an order of magnitude. Another topic that we are interested in our lab is to study the viscoelastic property of liquid crystals. And the thing that is interesting about viscoelasticity is that it just governs how your laptop screen or your cell phone screen react to electric field. So it's tell you how fast your display can be or how good your display can be. So usually what we do in our lab is that we develop tools to characterize viscoelastic property of certain liquid crystal. So if you are interested in doing things that are not exactly nanotechnology, but they are closely to nanotechnology, you can come and visit us. Okay, this is the list of, let's say, people we collaborate with. So we collaborate a lot with a group of Professor Clark at Ohio, and we have also a lot of collaboration in Colorado, and we have, let's say, national collaboration with a group in Padova and also in Milan. So if you are interested in internship and also even, let's say, stay abroad, you can come with us we can discuss. And even if you have, let's say, your own topic that are close to what we do, you can, let's say, write us a proposal and we will try to consider it. For every question, everything that you need as information, just mail Professor Lucchetti, she will reply you and we can organize, let's say, a discussion. Okay. Thanks.
Arrived at the end. I just want to tell you once again that the recording of this event and also the slide will be loaded on the webpage of the Learn page of the biomedical engineering, the master course of biomedical engineering. So if you have any question, if you want to know something more precisely or more in depth of any of the topics that you heard today, please, as my colleagues before me said, send them an email, a message to the professor, and we will be glad to answer. So we are a little bit late, so I will close very briefly, and thank you, especially the remote, because most of the people are remote. Thank you for participating to this event.